Miss Liz. Tea time, yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, welcome. It is afternoon tea. That's right. We're back a couple hours later, second tea time of the day. I really want to thank everybody for joining me this morning and for all the looping and joining and all over Zoom and StreamYard. We were all over this morning. But this afternoon, we got another incredible guest joining us all the way from the United States. That's right. We're traveling to the United States now. We were in Cameroon this morning. Now we're in the United States, and tonight we'll be in Canada. That's where we're traveling 3 countries in one day. So we're going to jump into the disclaimer and then the bio, and then we're going to get the incredible Allison Hammond into the studio to share her TEA. That's right. We're going to serve some strong tea, but we're going to do it in a different way. We're doing it Miss Liz style. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz, myself, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, it's always brought forward in good faith, however, it may bring forward dialogue and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussion for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about this disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I respect that, and I will see you at a later date, at a later show, and have you join me then. So now we got the disclaimer out of the way. Let's get into the incredible bio. I'm going to read just a bit, and then I'll get you to check out Miss Liz's Facebook page for the full bio of Allison Hammond. Allison Hammond created ResponSAble People and Company to help people and groups design plans for the future based on their gifts, skills, and knowledge. Through processing that uses graphic facilitation. This comes from a lifelong passion for bringing people together in the community for better lives. From a young age, Allison recognized that all people have unique gifts to share. Having a dancer's heart, Allison loves to be creative and use art to communicate, which fosters her love for using graphic facilitation that brings people's plans to life. As a natural-born teacher and a facilitator, she guides people through meaningful and deep conversations to discover their attributes, their visions for the future, and how to get there as a community. For more on Allison, please check out Miss Liz's Facebook page, and all of that good old whole bio is in there. So let me grab Allison and bring her in, and let's have a good old strong cup of tea. Welcome, Allison.
Hi, how are you? Thank you
I
so much
am not too
for having me.
bad. It is an honor to have you here, Allison. So if I've missed anything, I just want to give you this moment to share with everyone out there as I get everything up and running here. There we go. So if you'd like to share a little bit, Allison, on who you are and how you got into all of.
Sure. Well, in my bio, as it said, I'm a graphic facilitator. Although I was funny when you were reading that, I'm starting to use the word visual facilitator. What I'm finding is out in the world, people think I'm a graphic designer, like designing websites and things, and that I don't do that.
That's a lot of work.
Yes, it is. And it's really not. So I think of drawing as a verb. I'm creating drawings as people are speaking to me. My new tagline is "You talk, I draw." And so with the visual facilitation, I really started doing this about 12 years ago. I said in my bio that I often have found myself in my life, no matter what position I was in, be it a volunteer or in a job, I would be asked to facilitate groups. I think I'm good at it, and people would ask me, and I like to do it. I often would up and say, well, I'll do that because I enjoy it. And about 12 years ago, I went to Toronto and I was trained to do what's called paths and maps, which are processes to help people that experience disabilities plan for a life in the community and supported by their friends, family, neighbors, and also perhaps some special support service people that like caseworkers or care workers so that they can live the full life that they want in the community without assuming that all they can really do is live in a group home and do Special Olympics, which is a wonderful program. I do say that that's an option, but there's other options for people. And the first time I ever did a plan for somebody after I learned to do the graphics at the training, I went, oh my gosh, this is my calling. I love doing it. I love adding the visuals to it. And so, yeah, so that's how I got started. I do still work with people that experience disabilities through our mental health system here in the state of Michigan. And I love doing that work, but I found that every time I would do a plan for a person who has a disability, one of their friends or family would say, I need someone to do that for me too. And it was usually a parent getting ready to retire or a family that the mom's getting ready to be an empty nester. What am I going to do with my life? Or a sibling who had just finished college and really wasn't sure what they wanted to do next. So I realized that I could do this kind of planning for other people as well. And then I also know that one of the women, her name's Beth Mount, who is in New York. She also does some of the processes I use. She developed, and she works with corporations. So I knew that these kind of planning processes could work also with groups. So that is part of my goals with this business is to continue working with groups, small businesses. Currently, I'm working with some school districts here in Michigan because it's the visual drawing, it's the facilitation that it really makes a difference. And so I'm sure I'm going to get into that more. So
Well, I really like that the art, right? And I like that you're doing the groups because it's more fun when we're drawing. Everyone looks over and says, "Oh, well, you're drawing this. And it opens up the mind of others as well because they might have that block, and if they see something someone else is drawing, well, then that opens up something. Now you have this beautiful image behind you. So is that basically what you do? Is you draw like the
yes.
little images and then the words and
Yeah, so I hope she doesn't mind. This is actually a friend of mine who recently sent me kind of the story of her business, and she asked me if I would put it together into one of my drawings. That's a different request. I'd never been asked to do anything like that. Um, so one of the things that I do, just the basics, is I can come in and do visual note taking. So this was interesting. This woman happens to be in England. So she sent me a little write-up of her story. And I know her, I've worked with her. So I drew this, and actually when I was getting ready to come on today, I thought, oh my goodness, what do I have for a background? Because on the other side of this whiteboard is a bunch of scribbles in the preparation prior to drawing this, my thinking as I was getting ready to draw this, and that wouldn't have made any sense. So just coming into a group and just taking visual notes is like the real basic thing I can do. But I also can do, I've got some specific processes in my toolkit, so to speak, from shorter term, immediate kinds of planning, problem solving, to longer term planning processes for like a year or 3 years. And so but I also at another level is, for example, with this group of school districts I'm working with, they had a specific thing that they needed to plan around, a grant that they had. And so I kind of mushed together some of the things processes I know, and created the planning process that I took them through. And we've kind of, with the follow-up, it's helped me with creating some processes when we do follow-up meetings to check in with how things are going. So I can also do that as well.
So do you work like in any schools or any like support groups or anything like that? Or just in Michigan, like just in your community? Or do you travel to do any of this, Allison?
Well, I've learned to do all this virtually
Okay.
because of COVID, but I'm willing to travel. The school districts that I work with, we met in person. They're in Southwest Michigan. There's 8 school districts that are working together on this project. But we did the main planning process all together. And then for the check-ins, we've just been meeting via Zoom. I wanted to go back, and when you said groups, one thing I get asked often is if I'm a coach, and I'm not.
Okay.
So if I'm working with an individual to do a plan for them, let's say that we're talking about a woman who's getting ready to do a career change and she really doesn't know what she wants to do. So I don't just meet with her individually and we do a plan. I ask the person to please bring in friends, family, colleagues who can help you with the plan, because I'm just the facilitator guiding you through a process. So anytime I'm doing this, I'm working with a group, whether there's a focus person or the group itself has a focus on what they're trying to do.
So is it almost similar to a vision board? Is there a big difference between maps and vision boards?
So this is what I like to say. I actually did my own vision board this year, and I love doing vision boarding. I think it's really important to, sit down, and the one that I did, we cut pictures out of magazines and we put them together, and just to big picture thinking and visualize what are possibilities. What I like to say is, once you have your vision board, get a couple of your friends together and let's talk about what are your actual first steps to make that vision happen. Because oftentimes people will do their vision board. Well, here's my example. I did a vision board a few years ago. I came home, I showed it to my husband and my son, and they were like, that's nice. But what if I had, and I didn't think of this at the time, what if I had said, hey, why don't the 3 of us sit together and we'll facilitate a little path for how I'm going to actually get there? Because while they thought it was really nice and they love me and they know what I'm doing, how can they help me? How can they hold me accountable? And so that's what I see is they go hand in hand, the vision board and doing what I do.
And I like that you said the family gets involved, because it could be a family, activity, and we could do these monthly or quarterly. And
Right.
see, we're really changing. I really like that it's making a plan. And it's like you said, when we do vision boards, we show our family or our kids or our spouses, and they're like, oh, nice. So what do you want to do? You want to take a trip? You want to do this? But if we get everyone involved, then it's a plan for the family.
Exactly. Right. And so working with our friend Jackie Zaccoli, she actually has been helping me create some relationships with people that are coaches. So let's say that there's a coach and they're working with somebody who is really struggling with trying to think of some kind of a mindset thing. They've got some blocks. They're really having a hard time. Let's say even just coming out of the pandemic, because they've been at home and not doing anything. And now they're ready to get out in the world. And maybe they were home with kids. And so they work with a coach and they get through what all this stuff that's going on in their mind, and their mindset is changing. And now what? So now their minds are open to all kinds of possibilities and they can feel overwhelmed. So have me come in and let's do a plan and take what are all your ideas that you have and look at what possibilities there are for what you could actually be doing a year from now. And let's talk about what are your gifts, skills, and knowledge. And then we're going to figure out what are the next steps you can take in a pretty quick period of time, like within the next month, that's going to actually launch you toward that vision that you had. Because then maybe some of the things you do don't work out, but you learned something and you were in action. Or maybe they do start working out and maybe they even take you to places that you didn't even expect that are beyond what you even thought you might be able to do. So that would be an example of how I could work with a coach to support people that they're working with. And another example that I like is when a woman is trying to change something about their lifestyle. Maybe it's how they eat, and maybe they're trying to lose weight, or they're trying to get more physically active, and they're working with a health coach. But the rest of the people in their life are not involved in that. And so unknowingly, they can sometimes sabotage the person. I like, let's say I hear this all the time around the holidays. Somebody's really trying to lose weight. They're trying to eat more healthy, but they're the main person that makes all the Christmas goodies. Well, what if you sat down with your family and said, you know what, I'm pre-diabetic and I don't want to get diabetes and I need to move forward. So maybe this year I'm not going to be the one making all the goodies. Maybe let's make a different plan. Let's create a new tradition. But then you have the support of your family and friends to do that because they really understand what you're trying to achieve. And then they can also hold you accountable. Now, that's not to have them shooting on you, but that they can understand this is why you're making these lifestyle changes, that may be some big changes that do impact the rest of the family.
Well, it's a long haul too, right? And it's the open conversation, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I especially during the pandemic, everyone was locked at home with kids and spouses and stuff. But did they really communicate? At the beginning, they were happy to all have that family time, but then people were complaining, oh, I'm all the time here, like, you know. So I think it's really opening it up and having a deep conversation and saying, look, we all can work together, we all can better each other by understanding each other. And just by looking at the diagram that's in the back, I keep checking out this diagram, and I'm just looking at the images, and it actually shows a flow of growth because of the lines in the picture, the
Mm-hmm.
arrow of moving upwards, the rotation of, you know, getting into a routine. That's what I see. I don't know this woman's story. I don't but this is what I'm seeing. And a woman, you know, at the bottom, that's wanting to grow, that wants to flourish, that wants a routine in her life. um, you know, that's what I get from the image. And I think when we draw and we write, it's a deeper impact for us as well, because when we're doing vision boards, it's cutting papers out of magazines and that. But when we're actually writing the words and drawing the images ourselves, I think it's more of an impact, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I want to get into. I checked your website out and I did my homework. So you have training. So is there like workshops? Is there like can people contact you and have a virtual Zoom with you? How,
Absolutely.
how
Um, Well, yes, there is training. And for example, I was trained by Jack Pierpoint and Linda Kahn in Toronto, who train people specifically in these path and map processes. And there's some, uh, let's say, what's the word I want? There's some hints and tricks about when you're working with people who experience disabilities. For example, maybe they don't communicate as well, either verbally, or maybe there's somebody who's on the autism spectrum who is going to they're going to get up and they're going to walk around the room. I mean, so there's some of that. But then I'm actually right now involved with a course called the Agerbeck Method. A woman named Brandy Agerbeck is in Chicago, and she has a whole course that she does. And it's about visual thinking and drawing as a verb. And so she teaches about doing this kind of facilitation, but she also teaches just anybody who wants to get better at doing visual thinking. Everything from, some of the things she's taught me is like using a stack. These are index cards. And I've
Okay.
actually been working on some things related to my business as far as like my funnel. And so I'm literally making a card for each step in my funnel. And the thing is that if I put it on index cards, I can stick these up on a board and I can move them around to make it make sense rather than typing into a spreadsheet or using some of the which eventually this I believe will go into a system that's online. So at some point it's going to have to get input into that. But for the time being, before I start going through all the clicking on that button here and there and adding this and all that kind of stuff, it'll be organized by these index cards. So it's more than just the kind of facilitation I do. It's just helping to learn how to use drawing as a verb versus drawing as a product. And that's one of the reasons with like the graphic designers. Graphic designers are doing art and drawing for a product which is like a logo for somebody, or a product that is a campaign for somebody, or a website for somebody. Another product that we think of in art is, the masterpiece that's hanging in an art museum someplace. That's not what I do. My drawing is to make meaning for people and to communicate. And that's why it's usually, stick figures and shapes. And I do use words, but the lines in the drawing and the words together are what make the meaning.
So, what age was the youngest that has done this with you, Allison?
I actually did some paths with a group of young women here in Kalamazoo. Their program was called Girls of Color. These were middle school age girls, so that means they were like 13, 14 years old. And these girls live in very difficult circumstances. Parents are not at home working. One of them actually used to bring her little brother and sister sometimes to the program because she was the childcare provider. It was really fun to have them do these paths of what they wanted to do through the rest of their high school years, knowing what their dream was for what they wanted to do later in life, be it go to college or go to cosmetic school or whatever it was. And they did them together, and they figured out how they could support each other, because all of my processes in the end, your group of people are also going to be there to support you, hold you accountable, maybe help you with some resources. And so it was fun to watch them hold each other accountable. Hey, you're like, they would get together to do homework and things. You would hear them say, hey, I see you over there texting, and you're not done with your social studies homework yet. And these are 13 and 14-year-old girls, but because they worked together and they knew where each other wanted to go, they really formed their own little support community. And we know with that age group in particular, they're more likely to listen to their peers than to some adult that says, hey, get off your phone and go do your homework.
They're like, oh, shoot, you seen me. But if the teacher sees me, it's like, man, they're still going to do it, right?
Exactly.
So, working with all of these different types of groups and organizations and that, what have you learned about what you do by working with all of the different types that are out there? Like, I know that you work with a lot of, like you just said, the Girls of Color and that. And then you work with Jackie Zokor, who actually gave me Allison Hammond today. So thank you, Jacqueline, for that. She is one of my collaborators this year for 2023 for Teatime. So I want to thank her for that. But what have you learned about yourself doing these process and working with the different age groups and different organizations and that?
Yeah. One of the things that I've really learned is that when I'm in the zone and I'm doing this, I really am it's like a zone. I get connected to the people in the room and to what I'm listening for, to distill that down to what I'm actually going to put on a piece of paper. And I've learned that I'm really, really, I believe I'm really good at doing that because I've been told that I'm good at doing it. One thing I've learned about myself, though, is with starting a business. I'm very capable of doing a lot of the pieces around running a business. I don't like it. It does not bring me joy. And so this last year, I shouldn't say this last year, it was last month, I actually have a friend of mine that does this, do a path for me. And what I really learned is that I love this work because it's in the moment. I like doing the pre-planning. What I'm not as good as, and then helping people follow up, what I'm not as good at doing is some of the other follow-up related to business. And so that's one thing that I've learned that's been important, because when I did my path, it became abundantly clear to the people who know me, who kept thinking, well, Allison, you can figure out how to set up your website to do. You can, yes, I can. And actually I've watched YouTubes and I've started doing it. I don't like doing it, so it's not happening.
Yep.
So it's helped me see after, well, I've said of the last couple of years, I've just been throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what lands. It's been really good for me to do a lot of that, trying to do it by myself, because now I think I'm pretty clear on where I need help, because it doesn't bring me joy. The other thing that I've learned is that the processes I use when you bring people together, and I always believe the right people are in the room for that plan at that moment. Typical strategic planning, which I've been through a lot because I'm working with nonprofits, it feels like now when people walk into the more traditional, I would say, strategic planning, there's a lot of people that already have the answers in their mind as far as where they think things should go and what the benchmarks are going to be. And when I do planning, I come in with a big piece of blank paper and there's a framework, but what the ideas are for what the future is going to be, you bring people together, and together they come up with what the plan's going to look, what the vision's going to look like. And what often surprises me and the people in the room is they often together come up with something that they never imagined was going to be what they thought they were going to come up with. And then when we get to who's in the room, the gifts, skills, and knowledge of the actual people that are there, and figuring out what the next steps are going to be based on that, they actually do the plan, and they often surprise themselves at how truly simple what the steps are. Because they're thinking, strategic plan means you're going to have your mission, your vision, you're going to have your big goals, you're going to have your benchmarks, you're going to have your objectives, and then you're going to come up with your steps. And then you end up with a notebook with 60 pages of things to flip through. So 2 stories about that. One, I've been working with a small business here in Kalamazoo. They happen to be a pest control company that a friend of mine owns. And I did some just note taking while they had another person facilitate their strategic planning. And they were getting together later, and she told me they're flipping through the notebook of this plan. And finally, one person in the room said, that a thing we're talking about, what step that was, it's right here on the picture. So they didn't need the notes right there.
The notebooks.
Right, exactly. And then I want to share real quickly a story. I was working with a church group, and they're the communications committee for a large church. And they've got this task list. We need to prioritize what we're going to do first and what things we need to work on first. We've got all these things we want to do. They were idea people, idea. They had a lengthy list because they brainstormed their ideas. And after we went through some things and kind of simplified, are there some patterns to what you want to get done? Are there some chunky things that we can chunk together? They came up with the main step they needed to make was to make sure the online calendar that's available to the public and to the church members is always updated. Because when they do that, that means they're talking to all of the committees of the church. They're making sure events are getting on the calendar. They're able to communicate it through the newsletter and all that, because they've had to gather the information for the calendar. And that was, once they started doing that for 6 months, it solved a lot of the problems they were having with communication. But would anybody have walked into the room and said, yeah, our priority is to make sure the calendar? No, it took them talking through it and talking to each other and looking at various scenarios to come up with what it all kind of, the plan all sort of everything started focusing on, well, if we did that. And that was one person's job, really, to gather all the information and make sure that committee people were reporting. And then, of course, the other volunteers on the committee serve in other committees in the church, so they could also be saying, hey, we got to get that information over here. So that's what I love about, and that's what I've learned is people will come up with what's the best next step for them. I don't need to come in the room with any preconceived ideas. They can figure it out. I just need to provide the framework.
So you more or less bring the big white sheet of paper and the markers and all of that, and you're like, create. Let's see where we go, right?
Right. And I usually have a framework for what we're going to talk about in the flow. But I'm also open when this throws people off too, because they often want an agenda. And so I do have
a lot of people want those agendas.
And I do have within the framework, I'll say, yeah, these are the things we're going to do, and we're going to do them in this order. Now, when you've got a big piece of paper and somebody's, already after we've been talking about ideas, maybe somebody has a really good idea for one of the steps we need to take. I can always go to that part of the framework and make a note. This might be an idea. So we capture it. I use a lot of Post-it notes because if the ideas like that come up, well, sometimes I give the group Post-it notes and say, if you've got an idea for one of these, stick it on a Post-it note, stick it up here. And then when we're ready, I'll permanently put it on the path with a marker.
Well, I think they're cool to have too, right? Because you might have an ideal and you don't want to lose it. So have those sticky notes around, have that piece of paper around, because you don't want to lose it, because you might lose something that's really incredible.
Right. I usually have a sheet of paper up next to what I'm doing that's called the parking lot. So people can stick notes up there as well.
I like that, the parking lot. So I want to get into a little bit of how you came up with the name ResonsAble People and Companies. Where did that come from?
Well, it actually comes from, I did a newsletter a long time ago part of my background is early childhood. And I had a job where I was doing outreach to families in a very rural community about school readiness. And what I realized was a lot of the materials that we were giving to families was at like the 12th college grade level reading. And so I actually wrote a book called Becoming a Parent Through Powerful Promises. It's a picture book for parents. And then out of that, I made this newsletter that was called ResponsAble Children, because we want to raise children to be responsible rather than reactionary to life. We want them to not just being responsible, but able to make choices, and et cetera. So when I started working with people that experience disabilities, that kind of fit too. And now with the planning I'm doing, because we're taking into consideration the people in the room, they're able to be responsible and take action on this path or map rather than just responding or reacting to whatever the situation is. And responsible means like responsibility. That's part of it too. But I think people need, when you work from what they know what to do, they're gifted at doing, they're interested in doing, and different people in a group all have different things. And when you work together, they're all able to respond together rather than you're responsible for this and you're responsible for that. They're all together responsible.
Well, and I'm noticing a pattern here, a lot of accountability.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And making a plan for your life and making a plan for your future is accountability. Because we can't put it on somebody else. We can't say, well, you're responsible for my life. No, we have to be responsible. We have to communicate. We have to understand if we're still on the same pattern here, the same path, or do we go in different directions? And I see that with the responsible. And I always wondered why that responsible. But now I get it. And I get the capital A, accountability of being responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So did it just come to you? Like your name just come to you, or did you like think about it, or?
It kind of did. Like I said, back when I was working with children, it could be a higher power thing. It just resonated with me for so many things. And the other thing is with the planning I do, versus maybe what we think of as typical strategic planning, that those plans are often in a reaction to something, which that's not a bad thing. I think traditional strategic planning is very needed when you're going to be working. Let's say you're in a very large corporation and you do have a lot of different functions throughout the corporation, and you need to be looking at some more technical kinds of things. Where I come in is, let's say you've got a large strategic plan, and you're in the division of some company, and you've been appointed to take care of this part of the strategic plan. Where I could come in and say, okay, that's where you need to go according to this document. But now, where within this group of people that you have, how do you see that playing out, and how can you make that happen? What's your vision for making that happen? And then who is part of this team, and what do you think are the ways that you can work together as a team, or you individually with your gifts, skills, and knowledge to make that happen, so that it involves more people in figuring out the to-doing of this big strategic plan. So that was kind of a roundabout way to answer your question, but
No, the question that it's because sometimes we come up with the names of our businesses and that, and sometimes people want to know how we come up with them. And I like the difference of it, because even when I went to go and tag you and post, it was the responsibility kept coming up, the word. It was telling me that there was an error, and I was like, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. So just leave it alone. Sometimes technology just wants to fix and edit everything. It wants that
spell check.
Agenda, right, that we need to follow. And I like that there is no agenda, because I don't like agendas, because if things happen, then how do you deal with stuff? It throws you right off the path, and then you get frustrated, and you get you get disappointed in yourself. You're like, oh my goodness, like, what's plan B? Always have a plan B.
Right.
Because I think it's really important to have a plan B. I really like the flow of the drawing behind you, Allison, because it has an upbringing and a flow of going ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are most of your drawings that you do, when you do the maps, do you notice the up lines going upwards and growth? Or?
Yes. It's interesting. I don't know for other cultures, but at least in the United States, and I believe Western cultures, we tend to read things from left to right. And in general, from a design perspective, diagonal lines that go up from the bottom left corner toward the right indicate increase, or things going up, or things growing. I don't know in other cultures if they read the opposite direction. The opposite's true. I don't know. But so most of the things I do, so I'll just share just real briefly. Whoops, I'm pointing the wrong way. So this is actually this woman, it's her business. And down here in this brown part, she told me a little bit about her story of why she started her business. It was kind of a dark point in her life. And then she launched her business. And now this is the way she launches her clients.
Oh, wow.
So, but then in a path or a map that I do, a path is always a flow with an arrow ending up going up. A map is something the arrows are pointing straight up. So it is more of an uplifting, and visually, because of the way our culture is and the way things have been portrayed to us, it has meaning of increasing or growth or moving forward, as opposed to a line that goes from the top left to the bottom right corner of a paper means a decrease, or things that are going down. Yeah. I can also teach. I'm not a visual artist, but I have a dance background. So I do have a design background. So I do know some things about color, about design, about directions, about, like this picture, there's a big blank space here. And my feeling was, oh my gosh, I've left that blank. But on the other hand, no, because it makes the rest of what these going forward arrows stand out more. Where if I'd
Yeah.
started scribbling a bunch of other excess stuff in here, this is sort of her symbol for her business. It wouldn't. It would start making it all muddy. So this is clear. This is clearer.
Well, it would be too full, right? It would be too
Right.
much. Where this has a nice flow, and I'm noticing like the colors in the background of the like you were explaining the dark in the bottom where she started talking about her business, and then as it lightened it up, the colors actually lighten up as well
Uh-huh.
as she builds. Now, do you notice that when a lot of people are doing their maps that their plans that the colors are dark and then they lighten up as they explain their plans?
That is so interesting you said that. That is one thing that when I always ask a person that I'm working with, or if I'm working with a company, these colors actually come from somewhat from her logo. But so I always have a base color that I'm going to use to, well, this woman she happens to have red hair. Um, but as a base color, I am often really surprised when I'm done with a drawing at the colors I've chosen, because I'm usually choosing them in the minute and it's how I feel as far as what the emotions are coming forward. And we know lighter, brighter colors are happier colors, whereas brown and gray tends to be more of heavy colors. And um, there was a gentleman that we did a plan for. This was quite a while ago, and at the time he happened to be homeless. And when I did his path, when I looked back at the contrast, it was so brown. And then a year later, after was in a home, he was able to have his cat again. He had neighbors. Um, he had a life in the community. He was volunteering, I believe, for like the Humane Society or something. His path was completely different colors. And I did not set out necessarily to have it be that way. It was more like what colors were speaking to me as I was doing the path or the map. I've learned now from the Agrabah method that I'm taking to be careful about not using too many colors, because again, that can start making things look muddy. And not clear. So I try to keep my color palette to just 3 colors, sometimes a fourth one, like her hair is red. And I want her to stand out. So yeah, that's an interesting question about color, because sometimes I really, other than like the base color, I think will be like the thematic color, I often don't know what colors I'm going to end up using.
Well, and it's nice that these are the colors of her logo. Like and once again, I don't know the lady whose plan is, but it's nice that her logo colors are in there, and that you've made it personalized. Her red hair is to stand out because that's who she is, And I think that's really important. Just a message. Like I'm getting so much from this drawing. I like to analyze stuff and shapes and lines and all that. So I get a happy meaning from this. Like I get when you start a business, it's so heavy because there's so much to do, right? And then as you learn and you grow and you get your clients and you get your customers and guests and that, it lightens up. So the colors start to lighten up. The flow is there. You find your flow. But until you get that flow, you're like in a box. So that's where I get like the box here in the bottom. So it's a really strong image behind you, Allison. So I really want to thank you today for like bringing this to my attention. There's so much, like I'm doodling here. I have my paper. Like this is what I do, guys, when my guests are talking. Like I got notes, I got papers, I got. So if you see my head down, guys, I am paying attention. I'm taking notes. Miss Liz likes her notes for afterwards and that. So I want to get into a couple of the personal questions that I've asked you as a guest, and then we'll finish up with some more on the maps and that. But if I ask you what your tea is today, Allison, what would your tea be?
Um, well, it was together. And you asked me the 3 letters, and I ended up coming up with a kind of a phrase with the 3 letters.
Well, that's always nice too, because that's a flow of tea.
Right. People together, because people need to be together. Community, that's what that means to me.
So what do you have for your E and your A?
Engaged.
And your A, what do you have?
Action.
Oh, I like it. And it really speaks to you, Allison, because this is what it is. It's the tea. And all of the guests get asked this question, what is your tea? Because you're serving you. Miss Liz is not serving you. Yous are serving you what your work, your purpose, your whys. Miss Liz is just a hold. I just hold a pot, and I just say, okay, give me what you got. So I also asked you what your favorite color was and the one word that describes you as a person. So I want to get into a little bit of why those words, why that word, and why that color. So do you remember what you gave me?
I do know my favorite color is green, always has been. And it's interesting when I've done different personality things when it'll say, figure out what's your color. It often comes up either green or orange, interesting, but
Ooh.
green. Any shade of green, I just love green.
And your one word that you gave me, do you remember what you gave me?
I don't remember that.
Uh, it starts with the letter C. I'll give you a
Was
little.
it community?
No, another C.
Color coordinated.
Your one word that you gave me was connection, and I see that happening.
Yes. Yep. That goes together with community. Um, yeah, I am a connector, and it's been interesting with me starting my business. Um, Sometimes I feel like I've connected this person to that person and this person to that person, and then it's like, but wait, I have my business over here too, and that's okay because that's just what I do. It's one of my top strengths too in various in that word. And I think that goes along with the facilitation because I like to get people together and have them connecting their ideas, and I can start to see patterns to help them shape what they're going to do with that.
I like that you said the word patterns because that's what I see on that picture in the back is the patterns, the circles, the lines, the squares. They're all different patterns, you know. So I want to get into the word facilitation for the listeners out there that might not know what facilitation means. If you'd like to get into that a little bit.
Well, so a facilitator is somebody that comes in and makes things easy. You make things facile or easier. And so oftentimes I'm the kind of person that I'm a very big picture thinker. So that's the other way I connect things. I can connect a lot of ideas and keep making a picture bigger and bigger and bigger. But when I come in and I'm able to help people see more easily, more clearly what they're trying to communicate or what idea they're trying to bring forward, that's what a facilitator does. And often I don't really I'm a person, it takes me a long time to come to what my opinion is because I can see all sides of facets of something pretty easily. And so I like the role of facilitator in groups that I've served in because the question or a problem or a decision we're trying to make, I'm often the person who's like, I don't know. What you're saying sounds good. What you say sounds good. What you say sounds good. So if I'm facilitating, I can help bring all that together and help the group make a decision. And actually, it helps me then understand better why a decision was made or a choice was made about what action is going to be taken. So that's kind of where I see the word facilitator. Sometimes that, leaders use facilitation skills. I think really good leaders are able to facilitate. They may not do it graphically, but they're able to bring in a lot of information before they make a decision, or they're able to gather information, or they're able to set up conversations so people have opportunities to speak. Not all people in a leadership position are necessarily good at facilitating. And so that's why I believe that, like for small businesses or for some organizations, to have me come in because I am good at that. And so the leader can be part of the group and not be the person up in front, not being able to say necessarily what their opinion is about a situation or information that they would like to share, so that they're back to the word agenda. Leaders can be seen sometimes to be driving their own personal agenda, which sometimes they are. But, if they're really truly an open leader who wants to get the best out of the people that they're working with and get to the vision that maybe that person has, but bringing people along, then having somebody facilitate having discussions where they can be part of it can be really beneficial for a leader in a leadership position, to let themselves be vulnerable, to be part of the group.
I strongly agree with that. As a leader, sometimes it's nice to take the back seat
Hmm.
and let somebody else stand, and maybe show you a different direction of your business or your organization or something, because sometimes you're always in the front, so you don't see.
Right.
So if you give other people the chance to come to the front and share what they're doing, then you learn, you grow as well. And I say this all the time with all of my tea guests: I learn and grow from each and every one of you guys, because you're teaching me different ways of learning and that. And I like sitting in the back and hearing your story and hearing what you all do. So Allison, you mentioned a book. I didn't know about the book. So where can people get that book that you mentioned?
So that's a good question. The book is available on lulu.com.
Okay.
The PDF version is available. If people want a printed copy, I have to get those for you, because Lulu changed the whole story. They changed their formatting. So I can have some printed and I can purchase them printed, but people out in the world can only get the PDF version. But it is called Becoming a Parent Through Powerful Promises. And it's a picture book for parents. A friend of mine did the illustrations.
I'll have to get you to send me that, like the information in that, because I really want to look into that. So, are these books used in schools? Are they used in organizations, community services? Like, where are these books used?
Well, that we wrote, let me see, what was it? 2001. My friend who's the illustrator, we did this book. No, 2008 is when it was published, or we self-published it through Lulu. Honestly, I buy them and I sell them to people. My husband's had this dream that they should be given out in hospitals when babies are born. Yeah, so it was a thing that I did, and I've been using it, but I really never promoted it. And my friend, we both got full-time jobs when the book was done. But I'm pretty proud of it, and thank you for asking about it. And I will make sure I get you a copy, and maybe that will be the catalyst to me getting it in a different format so that I can publish it through Amazon.
Well, it's always nice to know, because not everything is on Amazon, and that's why I wanted to know, because there are some people that write books and they don't put them on Amazon. They either sell them privately or through them, or through their publishing company and stuff like that. Because not everybody wants at Amazon first, like,
Right,
you can only have so many Amazon number ones, and then what's the difference? You know, if you're not actually pushing these books, if you're just writing to write and you're not actually using them, what difference are we making, right?
right.
And I like when there's content in different aspects and different locations, because I don't always want to go to Amazon for a book. I want to go to Goodreads. I want to go to Barnes and Nobles. I want to go to Kohl's. I want to go to the bookstores. It gets us out, check out different things. It's like if we always went to one store to do all our shopping, we wouldn't know about all the other stores. So that's what I really like hearing. So I've never even heard of lulu.com. So I'm going to be checking that out as well. So I did see that you are on Instagram and Facebook, and you have your website. So is there any other place anybody can reach
You
out
know,
to you?
well, I don't know about reaching out. I have been having so much fun with TikTok. I've been doing these little doodles almost every morning based on some inspirational thing I've heard from one of the morning readings I do. And I'm almost up to 2,000 um,
Followers?
likes, 2,000 viewers or something, not likes, 2,000 views. I've got 12 followers. And when I first started with TikTok, there's so many. I don't know if you've tried it. There's too many.
Oh, I have. I get stuck on TikTok, so I try to stay away from it, because I get stuck on where they're scooping gems and stones. It's the weirdest thing. Or somebody doodling a picture, and I'll be watching that for
Yeah,
hours, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to make dinner, or I have to, get that done. Like, I have other things that I got to get done. But I find that when I get on TikTok, I have a hard time getting off of TikTok. So I try to minimize my time on TikTok.
those are more. There's a app that I use that's called Procreate to draw on my iPad. And as you're drawing in Procreate, it's creating a little time-lapse video. So I can just download the little time-lapse video that animates what I'm drawing. And so I've been just putting those on TikTok, and it's pretty simple. I don't try to put in all the words and the sparkles and too many choices.
Oh, well, I'll have to check out your TikTok. I'll have
Yeah.
to see what you got. Yeah. Once again, I try to minimize my time on TikTok because I do get lost on TikTok.
You can. Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot on TikTok. But I find that TikTok has really opened doors for mental health and that. And you said that you work with a disability and that. So how is the stigma with the MAP plans for people with disability?
Well, the people that developed maps and paths really were looking at how to have people live a life in the community with supports of just their community.
Okay.
Actually in Canada, some of the people I work with are in British Columbia, and then in Toronto. This is more common in Canada than it is in the United States. In the United States, when a child is diagnosed with a disability, obviously they're going to need medical support probably, and they're going to need some specialized support related to education. That's all true. We all need doctors and specialized support sometimes. But what happens is in the United States still, people with disabilities really are the most segregated group in the country. And that's across races and sex and identity and all of that. Because we think that we have to have specialists working with them, or they have to go to Special Olympics because that's where those people go. What I've found in my work doing paths and maps and helping people be out in the community where they want to be, often those people, the people that don't have that expertise, are often better able and more open-minded to figure out how to include the person, because they don't have preconceived notions of, oh, well, if you have somebody that's on the autism spectrum, you have to do these things. People in the community, they get to know the person is doing something that they love, and yes, they need some supports and some accommodations, but actually they're quite successful. And so, but there's still the stigma, and it even is hard when, it's scary when you have a child with disabilities who may struggle with decision making, who may be very easily led down a garden path, to have them out in the community independently. So the more that parents are aware that, oh, my son or daughter actually can be in these places and be safe if the other people in the community know them and know, one of my stories is there was a young man, he would go to the library and he could get completely fixated on being on a computer, and it'd be really hard for him to get away. When it was time for him to go home, he'd pitch a fit. Well, finally, what they figured out was other people that are usually there at the library, if they would say, you know what, you only have 5 minutes left, and then when you get up from the computer, I'm going to go show you that there's this new magazine about some topic that you like. And he was fine. But when mom or dad are saying, oh, you got 5 minutes left,
Yeah.
he would pitch a fit. So it was him getting to know people in the community that said, hey, we can help him move away from that by offering something else for him to do. And we're his friend, we're peers. So, but the stigma is still there. But the more that we have people included and in the community, and that we all get to know them, the better we all can support people, just as we support each other in everything.
Well, I want to really thank you, Allison, for joining me today on Teatime and sharing this incredible work. So for anybody who would like to reach out to Allison, check out her website, check her out on Facebook, on Instagram, and she did say TikTok, so check out TikTok again. And I want to thank the supporters and viewers who tuned in today. And if you're watching the replay, push #replay and let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions at all, reach out to me, Miss Liz, and I will connect you with Allison. I can send her a quick message and I can get her to communicate with you as well. So we will be back tonight for the final show of Thursday with Danielle Kubriski. I hope I'm saying her last name right. She is an author in Canada, and she will be speaking about her books and education and all of that, because that's what Miss Liz does. Miss Liz is teaching educational awareness. So we do bring education to the table. We do serve a different cup of tea on this platform. So again, Allison, thank you so much for
Thank
joining me.
you very
It was
much.
an honor to have you. Thank you, Adam, for tuning in. Thank you to the viewers on Twitter. You do have to verify that you're watching. I can't put your comments up if you don't verify. StreamYard won't let me do it. So thank you again for all of the viewers on Twitter as well. I want to thank each and every one of you guys. So check out tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have one more show this Thursday, and then we're back next week with 3 more guests from 3 different more countries. So be sure to check that out. And I'll see everyone at 7 p.m. Thank you, Allison.
Thank
Don't
you.
leave. I will talk to you in the background.
Okay, thank you.